your final exam, and I have to give you some sort of exam. So I'm thinking what would be more applicable. And so I have a couple of ideas. I'll probably share my ideas probably by next week. What would be what could be a good final exam for this class, because this is more of a actionable type sessions here, where you have to do problems, have to understand and be able to relate things. So connect things, right? You need to be able to connect all of these so that it all makes sense to you. So I'm thinking in that way. Maybe we could draw something with all the connectivity and all that, and leave blanks. And I say, hey, you got to fill in all these blanks and send it back to me as a final. So I'm thinking I could give you problems, but again, that's another option that I'm thinking for your final. All right, so looks like we got a couple more people. We got Candice here and Azim here. All right, super. So we got more than enough folks here to start to let's start to discuss the next chapter here, which is going to be teams, resources. And so I'm going to share that PowerPoint. It's up there on the canvas. If you want to pull it down, please do. All right, so let's just go back up here, share. And all right. Oh, beautiful. It went away. Okay, move this down here.
It's not opening on Canvas. It says it's not available yet.
Oh, is it? Okay, okay. Let's go fix that quickly. Let's go fix that right now while
Okay.
we are here.
It says this file is part of an published module and it's not available yet.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, no problem.
I'm going there right now. We can have that. Okay. So let's publish it. Okay, should we see it now?
Where are you finding that?
It's under, you go to modules or files.
Yeah, I'm in files.
If you go in files, you should see four items. Two of them are PowerPoints and two of them are Excel spreadsheets.
Yep, I do.
So the Excel spreadsheets you were discussing earlier, they're there. All right, Olivia, you should be able to get to it now.
Yeah, I was able to put it up.
All right.
So it's week 1 and week 2?
Yes,
is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, week 1 and week 2.
Okay.
So let's go back to.
Wow, there's a lot in here.
Okay, yeah, there's I keep updating that, as we learn more, and I find that what we covered and what questions you asked, I update according to that. Also, I keep making slight changes, not but it's all going to be there. I'm going to write over, so I'll tell you I've got a new updated version, which means a few things may have changed, a few things, not many. All right, I hope you can see my PowerPoint now.
We can.
All right, so this is going to be an interesting chapter. Going back to this screen here. Let's minimize this. So just close it for now. All right. So we began to talk about the 10 knowledge areas. 10 knowledge areas. KA are 10. And we discussed that the 5 process groups: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, control, closing, sort of are the underlying ways by which you organize a project, whether that's agile or that's predictive. Although in agile you won't see them as clearly as you would see them in the predictive one. And then initiation, planning, you talk about. So the the topic that we're going to talk about is going to be resources. And the reason I want to talk about resources, which is right here, if you look at how this is moving down like so, and then going sideways like so, it's going from stakeholders, which are people, then is going into resources, which are people. So before you get into the scope, which is going to be next week's topic, we got to talk about the team, right? Because in order to get to the scope, you need people. You can't get anything done without people. First of all, you need stakeholders who are the ones who are the leaders, including the sponsors and champions and all the department heads and everyone else that has power and interest. We looked at the power and interest grid. So once it's almost like, you gotta have a boss. So they are the bosses of project management. So they are the boss. They're the leaders who really have authority. Obviously, you don't have authority per se. Project managers don't have authority per se, but they have power over the process, over their expertise, and the people power. Yeah, somewhat. It's just a process. Process power basically. So team is what we're going to be discussing today in depth, as much as the PMBOK wants us to know. And I will throw in some reality to that to make sure it all kind of connects. We need to be able to connect all of these things. All right. So just at a high level, this is from PMBOK 6, not PMBOK 7, because PMBOK 7 they have sort of taken this and moved it around. But the process by which you sort of want to discuss resources in a project, particularly people, is still true. You still have to go through the planning, and that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to go through this process and discuss how they all connect, why it makes sense. So what is the process? First of all, you have to plan your team, and we're going to go through that in a little bit more detail. And once you plan your team, you are going to then be able to, at the end of all of this, you're able to then do work, right? You're going to do work, planning work with this team. So you need to plan who I need, why I need them, what they're going to be doing, where I'm going to get them, and hopefully what are the requirements of what requirements I have for them. What am I looking for when I try to find them. So it's all about knowing how to pick the right resource so that I can make them do the work to achieve the goal. And the next step to that is, after you plan that all out, you say, okay, now that I know who I need, you need to estimate how many do I need? Do I need one resource? Do I need two resources? How are you going to go about estimating them? And once you estimate, hey, I need, Tom, for this project, one FTE, one full-time equivalent, almost like 40 hours a week, FTE. If I need Tom for one FTE for 3 months, I have estimated that. And there is estimating a method which we're going to discuss, by which you're going to estimate that. And wherever you find the word tools here, these are sort of guidelines, the techniques you can use to actually get the planning done or estimation done or acquiring of resources done. So wherever you see tool, that's what it means. So we're going to, first of all, estimate how many do we need. And then once we know that, then we say, okay, let's go get them. Let's acquire them. And then so you go through the process of acquiring them. And typically, it could be an email. It could be sometimes and there's some way. Sometimes you know them beforehand before you even request resources. You probably, so depending on situation, and we'll talk about those situations. And then once you acquire them, once you have your team members recognized, you know who they are, and what their skill set is. But you don't know their strengths or weaknesses, or you don't even know if they are able to perform the work that's needed, although the resource manager said they are the most capable resources in the world. Sometimes when you are trying to deploy a brand new solution, the team sometimes has to be trained on that solution. So you may have to develop them. And so that is something that the project manager has to ascertain to see, to make sure that if that's the case, then they have to go through some training. And development is not just about that. It's not just about training. There's some other things that you have to look at in developing your team, and we'll look at those. So now that you've gone through planning, then finding out how much you need, then you find out the person, and then you are developing that person or persons or your team members. Once you have developed them, they're ready to start the work. And they start the work, so the work is somewhere here where they start the work. And then you start to manage them, manage the team. And managing the team really, it's almost like when you work for a boss.
Там посылку
You know how your
принесли?
boss manages you? The manager
Флешка
tells you,
должна
here,
была
this is your SOP, your procedure
Delivered
of
написано.
work. This is what you have to do. And I'm going to base your
Иди
performance
посмотри,
based
она прямо
on
у
your
двери лежит.
responsibilities. So managing the team from a project management standpoint is something similar to that. You're going to manage based on what you decided as when you were with them on what they have to do. So here they're going to perform, and you're going to manage them, make sure
Yes?
they perform according to what the plan says. And performance is all about getting the work done. Now, so whenever you see the word manage, that's what that means. And then the controlling is, okay, are they performing based on our certain metrics, quality. So it's all about quality metrics, but also based on your requirements. Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing given this methodology? Are they going to be able to meet the requirements that were set out in the planning phase? And so we're going to go through this sort of a step by step in a little bit more detail, so that you can get a complete picture and are able to connect all of these 5 steps that we go through when we talk about resources. So first, like I said earlier, you have to plan the resource management, how you're going to manage, the whole resource, the team, how you're going to manage the team from start to end. And that's part of planning, which includes estimation, developing, control. So before you can estimate, you have to identify, right? You have to identify your resources, and what do you think is the best place where that gives you an idea of who you need? What is the document that you need that you have to complete initially when you are starting a project? It's right here.
Charter?
Look at the screen.
That would be charter.
Charter, right. So if you open the charter, there is one section in there, and it talks about resources, resource need. And somewhere in there, you're going to state, I need an analyst. You won't name them. You'll say analyst 0.25 FTE, and so forth. And that information is always comes from the business case document, right? The business case where the business case document was created first and put together to initiate this project, and they did some analysis and they said, hey, we need X, Y, and Z resources, and in completing this business case, the sponsor met with the resource managers and said, for this particular project that we're trying to complete, what do you think we need? And so these resource managers were looking at their list of resources and said, I have 4 or 5, and each may have a couple of projects, other projects also in which their resources are assigned. They look at and see, okay, I got 1 or 2 available. Let's assign these 2 to this project. So all of that is happening behind the scenes before the project gets started, but not in every situation, but in a lot of situations. Some of the planning is done before the project starts in the form of a business case. Now that you are starting the charter, you got assigned as a PM, and you are completing the charter, you're working with the resource manager, and that information is provided to you from the sponsor / the resource manager, and even your own boss, because your boss is also behind the scenes working with the management to get the next project ready for a PM who they would have to assign. So now that you have pulled all this information. Okay, go ahead, Azim.
I just wanted to ask. I remember in the previous class we had this issue regarding the project manager and the project and the resource manager communication, and I thought that resources, in this case, people are not assigned. So project manager has to assign them. So now you're saying that they will be given to project manager, like now before he decides who is he gonna work with.
So Azim, look at this. I said analyst, so I didn't say Tom, and then I could say an architect, but I wouldn't know who.
I see what you mean. Yeah. So he will know the what kind of specialist that he needs, but he will pick the specialist like persons himself, right?
Right. So what they're doing behind the scenes is that we need to provide him with an analyst, we need to provide him with a engineer, a programmer, and all of that stuff. So when I'm filling in this information, the charter, I'm just putting in analyst. How much do we need? 0.25 FTE. How much architect? We need 1 FTE, full-time equivalent. So this is the information that I have received or have put together with by working with the resource manager. Go ahead, Javier.
So FTE, 0.25 FTE, you said it was full-time?
No, 1. 1 would be a full-time. 1 would be like 100%. 0.25 would be like 25%.
Okay. So if I need 10 developers, that would be 10 FTEs on developers?
So if you need 10 developers, you need to know how much of it, right? You need on a weekly basis. Full-time would be 10 FTEs. Yeah. Absolutely, FTEs. Full-time equivalent. So now that I've put that information in the charter, and I know there is high-level budget also associated with it. So they have already done the calculation. So they've the sponsor and the resource managers have done the calculation, and they come up with this high-level budget for this project based on these numbers. But they don't know who this person is. That responsibility falls on the project manager. So when the project manager completes the charter and gets a sign-off, his next task is to send a request to the resource managers and say that my charter says that I need a 0.25 FTE. Can you assign somebody from your team who can work on the team for this project? And so the project manager is going to shoot off emails, or if they are going to meet in a meeting type fashion. He can get the resource managers, explain this project to them. They may already know about it, and then request. Now, some of the information that they're going to be pulling in terms of who they want would be in the charter, but there will be some other team members they would be needing for less than 25%. So anytime you assign somebody to the project, you have to, at a minimum, assign them at 20 to 25%, and then budget for that. But if you need somebody for, let's say, 0.05% or 10%, like for a couple of hours, you don't really have to mention it in the charter, but you're going to mention it in your team roster for sure. So the people you mention in the charter are really 0.25, 25% and above. Anything below 25% or even 20%, you don't mention in the charter, but you are going to may need them as needed, on as needed basis. They'll come, do the work, and then they'll leave, and then you may never see them again. So those kind of people, the few hours here and there. For example, if let's say you are working on an IT project and you need the network to be enabled, so that firewall to be enabled, so that people can send and receive files, let's say from one company to another company, from the vendor to you through the firewall. That by itself, to get that done, may take a few hours to get that done. And once it's done, you will never need them again. So for those kind of resources, which are less than, let's say 20%, or even 5 to 10%, those kind you don't mention in the charter. You will not see them in the charter, but they will become part of your team on a temporary basis. And once their task has been completed, you won't see them again. All right. So we are going to, so right now we are in the process of planning, right? So and so we're going to have a couple of slides here on just planning. What do we mean by that? But basically, all the information for planning is going to be at a high level, would be in the charter, but then you are going to explore that further in the planning phase. But these are the 5 processes that you're going to include in your resource management plan. You overall plan, you estimate, how much do you need, then you acquire them, then you develop them through training mostly, but the other things we're going to talk about besides training, and then you're going to manage them, and then you're going to control them. All right, so that's the process, so that we kind of make sense of what, how would you go about coming up with a plan for the resources, and that's the plan. All right, so right now we're still in the planning mode. So what role does a PM play in the planning of resources? So today's topic is resources and the process of what it takes. What do we do with resources? How do we plan them? How do we estimate them? How do we manage them? How do we control them? That's all we're going to talk about today. So what would be the role of a project manager with respect to a stakeholders, with respect to team, with respect to vendor, with respect to agile? What role a project manager is going to play? Now, we're going to talk about the team right now. We talked about what role project manager plays in terms of the stakeholders last week. But now we're going to focus on the team. So the project manager is going to lead the team. By leading the team, what do we mean? So we got the team, we have identified the team, we have estimated the team. Now we have a team, and we know who they are. So and so the planning is going to begin. And as planning begins, the project manager leads that team. Is that always the case, that the project manager leads the team? let me take the case of a house. Let's say you're building a house, and you are the project manager. So you are going to engage with the customer, right, to get the requirements, and you're going to make sure that when you engage with the customer, you're going to probably have the customer talk to the architect, and you're going to make sure that there's a collaboration between the customer and the architect, and that requirement gathering happens, and you are the lead, and your team at the moment is the architect, who is a team member, and the customer, and you are the lead. Now, once you have the blueprint ready as a result of their planning, gathering requirements, and the architect working on them to come up with a blueprint, now they hand that blueprint over to the contractor. So here is the contractor who now got the blueprint from this team that consisted of the customer and the architect, two people. And you were sort of the lead over that. Now that the blueprint has been handed over to the contractor, who has also become part of your team now. So you got three people. You got the architect, the customer, and the contractor. You give the blueprint to the contractor and say, here's the blueprint, and here's the cost. Go build this house. The contractor is then going to engage a team of his or her own, right? Of how many people they need, plumber, electrician, whatever. So here the PM, I said, is your lead, but now the contractor has become the lead over his team now. The project manager is a lead over the architect, over the customer, over the contractor, but he is not a lead over the contractor's team.
He's
The
now more
contractor
like
is.
empowerer, right?
He has empowered the contractor to sort of lead his own team.
In this
You see that?
in this case, contractor and the architect is the same person.
No. Contractor is another person. Architect is another team member, and the customer is another team member. So you got the customer, you got the architect. Architect is the one who's going to sort of create the blueprint, the design of the house. The contractor is actually going to build it. Contractor is going to hire his team of electricians, plumbers, construction, concrete people, all of those. So there is a team here that this contractor is going to manage, and become the lead of that. So project manager is up here now, and his team are the contractor. His team is the architect. His team member is the customer. But there is another team that the contractor has, which is down here, and he is the lead of that team. The PM is the lead over all of them, but he has sort of empowered the contractor to lead his own team. He's not going to say anything about contractor's team, because it's hey, contractor, you get your own people and you make them do the work. I just want to get the work done. I empower you to support your own team. So this is where empowerment comes into being. Just like when the project started, the sponsor empowered the project manager to lead this project.
Yeah.
So empowerment means that also. Now, sometimes people also, there is this word called delegation.
Yes.
Delegation and empowerment, are very closely linked. When you empower somebody to do something, you give them the tools and everything, and you say, you're empowered. Now go do it. Delegation is same thing. You give them the tools and give him the know-how, guide him, and say, okay, now you know enough what to do. Go do it. You delegate the work to that person. So they are sort of similar in nature. So those are a couple of roles that the PM is going to play when it comes to the team. What else is the PM role is going to be about? Support for high performance. So the PM wants to create a team that is going to perform productively, and should be performing at a level at which they can get the work done. Right? He wants them to work as speedily as possible. So, in terms and just look at that for a second. So, what do we mean by high performance? So, team, obviously, that has minimum conflicts, right? He's going to remove, or at least try to remove any team conflicts. So that would be part of his job. He's going to make sure the team is working cohesively and productively. He's going to remove any roadblocks. If the team has issues, problems they're facing, he's going to listen to them, and he's going to try to help them, support them, find them a plan B if plan A is not working, or connect them with somebody else to help them. He's going to help them collaborate with the stakeholders. So if there is work or some decision that needs to be made and that requires a higher up in the chain, in the food chain, or higher up in the chain in hierarchy, leadership hierarchy, he is going to be the mediator in that and help that team member. So in the collaborating with stakeholder is another role that the PM is going to play, almost like a connector. Maybe he could set up a focus meeting and have the team member join that focus meeting with a stakeholder, maybe a sponsor or some other member, to make sure that problem or issue that they're having gets resolved. They are responsible for creating or setting up a virtual team, which is sort of obvious. If you are going to be working remotely, the PM is responsible to make sure that this remote team is going to work well virtually. So that's also another responsibility of the PM. The PM can also be responsible to mentor stakeholders. And what do we mean by mentoring stakeholders? So if you have a process by which you are planning and you're going to execute and you're going to close, that process that you're going to be using, you want to make sure your stakeholders, particularly your sponsors, are aware of that. So you're going to mentor them, inform them about your project approach, how you're going to plan, how you're going to team up with your team members, how you're going to collaborate, how you're going to communicate, how you're going to provide them with reports, etc. The PM is also going to help in arranging for team training. If the team needs any kind of training, they will facilitate or help or connect them with the right source for this. In some projects, like I said, the team members may need that, and the resource managers are mostly the ones who are assisting the PM in that respect. Not all projects require that your team members be trained. Very few of them actually, but there are cases where you are bringing in a very big application or totally changing the workflow, and it's all new to everybody, so everybody gets trained on it first before they start to work on deploying it. So if that is the situation, you are going to facilitate this task with the vendor who's going to provide the training. So it's going to be some vendor who is going to be bringing in a solution, and you as a project manager is going to facilitate that via meetings, via virtual training sessions, whatnot. So all of these different things are happening with the people that you're engaging to get the work done. Build and maintain shared understanding. This is all about transparency, all about letting each team member know what their role and responsibility is going to be in this project. So we talk about the roles and responsibility, R&R. And finally, I think another element of where a PM can play a role is in making sure there are ground rules. Ground rules are team rules, how the team is going to collaborate. What are the ground rules? And there is such thing called team charter, and that's where you put all these rules. If you get a problem, let's say a PMP problem about a team having issues, not knowing what to do or how to organize work or how to collaborate, maybe there were no ground rules created early in the project. Maybe the teams did not get together, or a PM did not put together a team charter. Especially if you have a brand new team who is new to each other, and they are trying to collaborate on something. You got to have some rules, right? And where you're going to put those rules, and those rules are put in a team charter. And we look at a team charter further down in this session. So keep these points in mind, that the PM role towards team members or people, especially team, is to lead them, empower them, support them in terms of making sure there's no team conflict, remove any roadblocks, be a mediator in collaborating with stakeholders, and make sure when you are working remotely, there's a virtual environment. You make sure there's a Zoom meeting or there's team meeting ways to communicate virtually. So you're responsible for that. Mentoring stakeholders, meaning informing them about your process, what's going on, how you can inform them. And I didn't talk about this, but emotion intelligence, using your emotional intelligence to promote performance. So if you are aware of your team members' strength or weakness, you can use that to help them perform better. So these are the pointers to keep in mind when it comes to team and the PM or the coordinator. They are responsible for all of these in terms of the team members. So let's look at some more planning components. So as you're planning for all of these, you're keeping all of these things in mind as you're planning for each and every one of those items here. Now, like I said, not everything is relevant in every project. For example, training may not be relevant in every project, but some of the other stuff here, you got to keep in mind, because those things do happen. Conflicts does happen sometimes. Roadblocks always happens. Stakeholders, you get sponsors who have no idea how you're going to go about doing the project. And so for their comfort level, you got to explain to them, I'm going to go through a planning phase. I'm going to go through, execution phase, monitoring control phase, where I'm going to monitor them, make sure I look at the variances, the cost, the scope, the schedule, and then we're going to have a formal close. So you got to kind of walk them through all of that, just verbally. Just, hey, we're initiating the project using the charter. We're going to get it signed off. Then we can move. Then I'm going to engage the team, move us into planning, start planning, gathering requirements, whatever the steps there are, and so forth. So they are aware of how you're proceeding, what your organizational approach is. Okay, so resource list is a good one to have. These are the people that are in my team. You can create a sort of a team roster in an Excel spreadsheet, or SharePoint site, or team site, wherever you are keeping track of all the documents, your folder, wherever your folder is, you can create a spreadsheet in there, and on one of the tabs you can say resource and put the name of the person and their email. Name and email. This way, it's almost like creating a directory, a directory of all the stakeholders, but specifically your team members. And then you're going to start thinking about how much I need and when I need them, and what if they go on a PTO. In other words, go ahead, Azim.
So you said to create a file. You said shared file. So is that the reason? So they can communicate between each other? For that reason?
It is for you, so that you know who they are, and what their email is, their telephone number is, and it is just like making some notes on your team members.
No, I mean,
So
you said to create a spreadsheet. Spreadsheet means that everybody could have access to it, right? So you want
everything that
you
we
want all the
create.
team members to have access to each other's emails and contacts in case they need each other. They can
Yes.
communicate.
Absolutely. So it's almost like it's for them and it's for you. It's like, and you said shared. That's an excellent word for this. So everything that we do in terms of project management has to be transparent. So whatever file you create, whatever information you put out there, it should be shared, except for stakeholder. It's called stakeholder matrix. Let me write it here. Stakeholder matrix. Stakeholder matrix is a file where you take notes about the power and interest, how much the stakeholder has power and what is their interest, low, medium, high. So and any other item you want to jot down there for the stakeholder, that could be a part of the same spreadsheet, and you can you can have a tab here and you can say stakeholder, and you can even write their name and their email and their and the department they're from, and their power level and their interest. You can do that also. So when we talk about resources, really, even though we're talking about team here, you can also include stakeholders as part of this, and keep a tab on them also in the same fashion. Again, so when you need them, their calendar. In case they go on a PTO or go on a holiday or go on time off, you got to put that in this spreadsheet. They'll be gone from this time to this time. So when you're planning your project, they will not be available. So you got to know this, and you got to put this information also in the same spreadsheet somewhere. So it's good to have a spreadsheet and for stakeholders and manage their information in that particular file or in that particular page. And not only the internal stakeholders, but also the external stakeholders. So the cost factor you don't have to worry about as yet, but when you are going to start to plan a budget, then you will also be putting that information there. And then you'll start thinking about how am I going to manage these people? How am I going to track their work? Basically, how am I going to track them, track their work? So these are some of the things that you'll be sort of planning about the team, or thinking about the team as you are getting the team together and trying to get them ready to start to work. But these points are sort of important. This is something we're going to discuss, and these are sort of covered in here also. So what about the type of approach you're using? What about if you have a team that is agile based, or a team that is predictive versus agile? What's the difference? When you're planning the team, if you have an agile team, are you going to plan a little bit differently, or you're going to plan the same way you're going to plan your predictive team? Let's think about the agile projects. Agile projects are they are projects that have short durations, right? A sprint, 2 to 4 weeks sprint, versus a predictive type project that are longer in length, right? They are sort of 3 to 6 month long projects, or more, even 3 to 1 year, 2 year. So they're sort of in terms of the duration, they have different durations. So here in agile, the teams are usually not more than 4 or 5, maybe 7. They're small teams, agile teams. These teams can start small. They can start off when you're in planning, you may have a few people, but when you go into execution, you may have many more. So here there are more people. In agile, you have less people, and these people that you have in agile, they're very what shall I say? They're very close knit group. They're close knit group of people. They work very closely. They work together, and that's why they can get stuff done quickly. And they're not scattered. They're not scattered all over the place. They are just maybe located in one place, and they're all experts in what they do. They're all seniors, experts. They work fast. You don't have to tell them everything. They don't like a lot of direction. They are you just tell them what you want, and they'll go work with each other and get it done within a short period of time. That's why most of the applications are done this way, because you got these programmers who know their stuff. You tell them what you want, and they go build it for you. Versus something like this, predictive, where you have you got to build a rocket, for example, or you build a dam, or you build a house, or you have to deploy a vendor-based app. All of these are different animal from what a sprint team may be doing. And so they're short. Since the sprints are short, you have fewer resources, and so you have different ways to size them, and they use what we call t-shirt sizing scheme, and which means that you talk in terms of, oh, I have a small team, or do I have a medium team, or do I have a large team, or I have a small size project, I have a medium size project, or I have a large size project, and so the work. This is one mechanism by which they size the team size or the project size. And so just keep that in mind. They use the t-shirt method, agile. In the predictive world, you use things like, you're going to go top down, and you're going to go bottom up. That's for estimation. But in terms of sizing, you do use large, medium, and small, but you don't use the word t-shirt. T-shirt is really confined to the agile team and agile methodology or agile world. So another characteristic about these small teams is that they are going to build and they're going to test. In the predictive, when you have these large projects, you may have a testing team, a separate testing team, a separate build team, a separate training team. When it comes to agile, you just have this 4 or 5 people, and they're going to build, they're going to test, they're going to train. They'll do everything. These 4 or 5 people, versus a predictive type environment where you have longer periods involved in projects, or phases are basically how you divide them up. The team sizes are of varying sizes, and they are everybody is doing one particular type of work, versus an agile. So keep that in mind. In agile, it's a small team. They sort of work together and they do everything, versus a predictive type environment. you may have an architect, you may have an civil engineer, you may have a contractor. So everybody is sort of different. They're not going to work together. They have their own specified work cut out for them, and they are experts at those, and they don't mingle with each other. They have their own line of work, and they do those separately. So that is how you sort of can differentiate between how the teams work, the team makeup. Because our topic is teams, so I'm focusing on the team makeup. When we are planning in agile versus a predictive. Stop me if you're confused or it's just not clear. All right. So we talked about the team makeup. Now we are going to use some of these tools. So these are tools which we're going to talk about. And again, they're going to help us plan out the team in terms of who's going to do what it looks like, how we're going to rearrange, how we're going to govern this team. So RAM is Resource Assignment Matrix. So what does that look like? It has activities on one side, and it has team members on the other side. So you may have a task here, and you may have a name here, Tom. Tom is going to be doing this task, and then you may have and so you can probably so activity and team member. You draw a matrix like that to define their roles, what they'll be doing. I don't like RAM a whole lot because it talks activity and team. I like the RACI instead. RACI is another type of matrix where you have a team on one side, you have the names of the people on one side, and on this side you may have a task. Another column may have a task here, and then you will have on top, you will have RACI. And for this person is going to do this task, but should only be informed. It would be an I, and this person here could be the PM. So for this task, a task could be training. If the task is training, and my name is here, what will I be doing during training? You just inform me. I'm not accountable. I'm not responsible. I'm not a consultant on this task. Let's take Tom. So Tom is here. Go ahead, Azim.
Yeah, I kind of got confused with the charts. So why do we need them? Do we use them for giving assignments to specialists or what?
Yeah. So this is another, when you're planning with them, you can sit with them and say, okay, let's try to see, I got you all here, and we know what the work effort is, the WBS is. Let's start to allocate roles to those tasks. And let's make sure we have the right people for the right task. And so you could use the RAM assignment matrix where you have a task and you say, who's going to be doing this guy? Okay, you could say task training. Who is good at training? And then Tom raises his hand and says, I'm good at training. I think I've done training before. I'll take this task. So you say, okay, Tom, you're going to be doing training. So and then so forth. So that's one way to sort of define who is good at what. But a better way is to use the RACI matrix. So you say, okay, training. Who can do training? And Tom says, yes, I can do training. Okay, you put Tom's name here. Say Tom and say training. And say, so Tom, you will be responsible for training. So I'm going to make you responsible for training the end users. And who wants to be responsible for, so responsible and then accountable. So who wants to be accountable? So accountable could be maybe the lead The lead is, let's say, let's go back up here. Javier. So Javier says, I will take on the accountability for that. So we say, okay, Javier, we'll make you accountable for training. And PM, Professor, you also want to play a role in training, but we cannot make you responsible because you don't know anything about training. We cannot make you accountable because you don't know anything about training. We cannot make you a consultant because you don't know anything about training, but you do want to be informed so that if there is a decision to be made or if the training is not going well, they can escalate to me. So keep me informed of the training status. So I become an I. Do you see that? So this is sort of team sitting together, and you pull out this spreadsheet and you say, okay, we're going to go through the task list. So we have a task list. So this activity, we have an activity list. So you have your activity list and at a high level. So let's say you're in initiation, you don't need anybody because you don't have a team yet. You go into planning. Now you got your team, and you know that you have to gather requirements, and you have to do the scope statement, right? And then you have to do some quality planning, and then you have to do some risk analysis, and you probably have to do the schedule. Okay, so and then you have to find out who's going to end up doing training in the execution. But right now you're planning, so you got to know who would be the one who, and then you can use this matrix here and say, okay, let's talk about training, and then of the 4 or 5 people, you can fill it in here for that. Quality, who's going to be accountable for quality? Who's going to be accountable for? Who's going to take responsibility to make sure that we meet the quality criteria? Who's going to be the consultant? Who's a quality consultant in this room here? Oh, you are. Okay, so you are the quality consultant. And then again, PM will inform you. So PM is going to get informed for when it comes to requirements, when it comes to scope statement, when it comes to quality, when it comes to risk analysis, when it comes to schedule planning. Well, schedule planning, the PM can become responsible, could be an R here, the PM. Because schedule, really the PM is the one who takes on that task, gets the information from everybody and puts it in there. So the PM could be that one. So then let's say we're talking about, who's going to take care of the IT stuff? Who's going to be taking care of the network stuff? Who's going to take care of the database? Who's going to take? So as you're going through different tasks, different types of work, you are in your RACI matrix, you are allocating who's going to do it and what role they will be playing. When we say responsible, that means this person is responsible to actually do the work. When we say accountable, that means if something goes wrong, this person is accountable. That means he's already the quality person. Right? If you're accountable, that means you're overseeing this person. It could be the lead, the team lead, could be the PM, but sometimes there's a team lead who can be the accountable person. The responsible person is the one who's going to actually do it. Consultant could be somebody like the vendor. The vendor could be the consultant. They could be the consultant, and you, because it's their solution, they're the ones who know everything, right? So they could be C. And then I obviously is going to be the PM in most cases. So on page 131 in your book, the new book, page 131, there is a diagram of these types of structures. If those who have the book can look at resource assignment matrix, RAM, this first one, RAM, and there is an example of that on top. And those who have the book, yes, Letris.
So that I'm clear, I think you kind of answered it for me, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the person that's so my original question was, what's the difference between the person that's accountable and the person that's responsible. And if I'm understanding correctly, the person that's accountable is accountable for the task and the people who are performing the task. If
You got
they
it.
are okay.
You got it. Yeah. And the responsible is the guy who's actually doing it. He is responsible to get it done. And accountable is the person who's sort of overseeing, the supervisor, overseeing that. All right. So if you look at page 131, you will find those three structures drawn out for you so you can see how they look. The other one that I didn't sort of go over was RBS. So is it on the next page? Okay, here's your RACI matrix. So here you see the RACI matrix I just was talking about. You can look at that in the slide deck, but let's go back here and add one more here. So there is this resource RBS, and it's a resource breakdown structure. So resource breakdown structure is where you have the resource on top. For example, this could be the PM, and then under the PM, you got the lead, and the lead under the lead could be the contractor, and then under the contractor you have his people. So this could be considered as a resource breakdown structure. This one right here, and it's in the book, page 131, new book. The old book, you guys have to figure out where that is, but in the new book is on page 131. Just look up RACI in the 10th version, and you'll find it. So so just keep these terms, acronyms in mind. RACI is very popular, and everybody knows about it. This one, but it's good to kind of know that RAM is a short version of that. RACI is like a little longer version, and then RBS is resource breakdown structure. It's like a hierarchy. Who's below me, who's below me, who's below me. So it's a hierarchy of people. And all of these tools, I'm calling them tools because they are good tools to know. So when you're with a team and you want to sort of delegate things or empower team members, you can use these tools to sort of show them. And a good example, okay, so in the 10th edition, Olivia says it's page 304. So let's write down here, 304 for the old book, the 10th version, page 304. All right, so this is an example of a RACI matrix here. And so, it's sort of what I just spoke of. It looks good, and team members' confusion goes away. You see all the team conflict. One of the reason for team conflict is because they're not sure what they'll be doing, and it's good for the PM also. So PM also has to think, how should I explain to them what their responsibility is going to be. There should be an easier way, so they can use this RACI matrix to sort of explain to the team members, hey, this is based on your, now this stuff here is the activity list. This is going to come from them, right? Or from the vendor, this activity list. Once you have the activity list, you don't have to actually, this RACI matrix should be done between the PM and the vendor PM. So the vendor PM can also, you can partner with the vendor PM, especially if you're getting a third-party solution from outside. You can have the vendor PM join forces with you, and you can put this one together, and you can say, okay, based on the project plan of the vendor, this is what we guys are going to be doing, and this, so it kind of helps and visually makes it easy for them to see. And you can put this RACI in the same spreadsheet where you have their names and phone numbers and all the other good stuff. All right. So talking further, so now we're going from planning into what's up here. This is a little before the cart before the horse, but it's okay. Whenever PM approaches PM approach is formal and requires documentation. So whenever you're talking about teams and you're talking about their responsibilities and all that, you're using some sort of tool, and that tool is documented. In other words, you create a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet is your documentation, right? Of in terms of the team's profile, right? You're documenting the team's profile in somewhere on the folder, team site, wherever. And the roles, all of these tools will make the role very clear to all the team members. And once the role is clear, it's very easy then to do team meetings. And then the planning done by team, they know who is doing what, and PM really does most of the coordination. The planning is done by team, and the PM does the coordination. Now, if the PMP exam poses a question and says who does the team planning, the answer is team, according to the PMI, and PM does the coordination of that team. I'm going to coordinate the team. The team is going to do the planning. And the reason they're going to do the planning is because they are the subject matter experts, right? So they are the SMEs, and that's why they will be doing the planning. They know what they're going to be building. They know what they're going to be training. And especially in an agile, the team is so small that they have to put their heads together and do the planning, do the training, do the testing, do everything. So what the PM does in agile is basically make sure they follow the process. He tracks them, make sure they're productive. He makes sure he writes the checks, pays the bills, and he communicates the statuses, and he moves them from one sprint to the next. He coordinates the issues, he coordinates the risks, escalates if there's escalation required. He is the one who is probably scheduling all the meetings, making sure they meet during planning, the sprint review, during reviewing with the customer, the sprint review with the customer, sprint planning with the team, and then retrospective, and daily 15-minute scrum calls, the daily calls in the agile. All of that is done by the PM, right? PM responsibility is to improve team's performance for effective output. Do we have the right skill set? So that's, initially when you're planning, who you want to bring on board, you also are worried in the back of your mind, am I going to get the right person or not? And so that's why they talk about training the person initially. Remember, not every team goes through training, but sometimes they do. And so training is something in the back of the PM's mind as they are getting resources, onboarding them, and creating a team. PM monitors resource availability and ensures resources are acquired for the task in the project plan. So, like I said, the team members, you're going to get them at either one FTE, full-time equivalent, like 40 hours a week, or you may get them 25 FTEs, or maybe 8 hours a week. 8 hours a week. So whatever the case may be, you got to make sure that they are available, they are working, and then they're doing the work. And that if they are not available, you should know when they're not available. In other words, if they are on PTO, paid time off, or time off from work that week, you should know that. So you should basically give them a heads up, and that information should be in the team charter. Hey, anytime you guys need to take 2 weeks off for your time off, you need to let me know at least 2 weeks prior, or a month prior if possible, or 2 weeks prior, or week prior. And you can put that as a rule, a team rule in the team charter. And so that is going to help the team members. It's going to help you when you're planning the schedule. It's going to help everybody. because you don't want suddenly something, you got a hard date coming up and suddenly somebody is off that week. At least you should know about it, right? So you can plan, change gears, go into plan B mode, or you can plan accordingly, right? You can say, we're not going to do this work next week because Harry is not going to be around. So we're not going to do that. We're going to do something else. So that's something, it's part of team planning, right? And you should need to make them aware. Sometimes they won't tell you because we didn't make it a point to discuss that with them. And then suddenly these things are going to start coming up. And so as these things come up and you say, you know what, we should have talked about this earlier. So let's bring it up as a topic. And then in your in the Scrum case, in your daily stand-ups, or in the predictive case where you have weekly meetings, you can bring this as an agenda item and say, from now on, we're going to make a rule that anytime you need to take 2 weeks off, you're going to let all the team members know. And that's it. You made the rule. And if you have a team charter, put it in the team charter. If you don't have a team charter, just make sure everybody's aware of this rule. There's not a whole lot of rules really that you need to be documenting. The other rules are really your culture, what your culture is, right? You have to be respectful to each other. You have to work together. You have to be collaborative. You have to exchange information. All of those things are part of your culture. And if you have to make those a rule for this project, it's up to you. If you feel that their culture, what if you are working with a team that's working in a different country? I mean, if you are here in America, at home in Houston, and you know everybody fine, the culture, you understand the culture, everybody knows how to act in a team, right? But if you're working with people from Russia, India, Turkey, Europe, and they're different cultures, China or Japan, then you got to know their culture, and maybe you would need a team charter, right? You want everybody to understand all of these things. We got to talk to each other, explain. If you have an issue, you have a roadblock, you got to bring it up. Don't sit on it. If you can't get something done, let the PM know, let the team members know. All of those things you take for granted that they should be doing those things. But sometimes when you are in an international type team environment, or you have a mix, sometimes people forget these things or behave differently. So in order to minimize conflict, this is actually a PMP question. What I just talked to you about, this different, what happens when you have a international team working for you? What should you do? What do you think is the missing link? The missing link may be your team charter. And another solution to that is you should try to document more than rely on verbal communication. Because verbal communication sometimes gets misinterpreted, right? I say one thing and you may mean something, you may understand something else. So to make sure that the communication is clear is the best way to make sure that you understand the other person is. Ask them to write on a piece of paper, and so you can document it. So it's good to take meeting notes and distribute to everybody. So if somebody says, hey, I didn't say that, oh, I didn't mean that, or this is not what my task was, this is not what I agreed to do. So it immediately becomes easy to pinpoint and to take a corrective action, right? You can take a corrective action if things are documented, but if it's just said and the other person says, yes, I got it, well, you think you got it, but, you just don't know. Oh, there we go. We were talking about our team charter, and we have a team charter on this page. How are we doing? Where's my time-wise? How are we doing time-wise? Let me stop here for a second. It's 7:54. Let's take a break and come back here at 8:10. Let's come back and then continue with the team charter, 8:10. We didn't take a break. We should have taken a break.
Thank you,
All-
Professor.
All right, let's just do that. Okay.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5. 134, 18. 134, 15. No. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. Document number, passport, номер паспорта скажешь. الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
But the stuff that's in here is important, though. Things like how to resolve a conflict. You could put that in the team charter. If there's a conflict, how are we going to resolve it? How are we going to report our update to the PM? Or if there's a task that we are trying to complete and we cannot, for some reason, complete it because of some issue, some difficulty, how we should address that. How often should we meet? What are meeting rules? For example, we don't want the people to be looking at their phones while they're in the meeting, for example. How will we work with the contractors? This is an important one. How should we deal with the contractors? In my opinion, they are equal partners in the project, and you should treat them like you're treating any other team member. And the more you think that way, do that way, the better off you are. How will the task be assigned? A task assignment, how it's done, how we delegate tasks. What's the way we're going to do it? How to update the PM? How you're going to inform that task has been completed, and about the time, time off. How are we going to get that across? All right. So let's talk about now that we are, the team has been onboarded, and you know who they are. They are actually doing the work. Either they're in the planning phase where they are gathering requirements and completing the scope statement, what's in scope, what's out of scope. We will talk about this in scope, out of scope business next week, but just for those who have taken my first class know what I'm talking about. So requirement is the first step, then scope statement, and so team has started to work together, right? And while they're working, the PM is observing them and trying to make sure they are productive, they're doing the work, and he is trying to support them. When the project is following the agile methodology, then the role the PM takes on is that of a servant leader, which means that they are very supportive of the effort. They're hands off because the subject matter experts or the team members are very experienced in what they do, and they know what they're supposed to do. So they really don't need to be told what to do. Once you give them a task, give them a user story from the backlog, where they pull out those 5 things from the backlog and they start to work on those 5 things in that 2 to 4 week sprint. The PM really becomes hands off and just, or the Scrum Master, same thing, Scrum Master or Project Manager, hands off and just tries to support them. So that's what's going on there. Now so as the team is doing the work in the planning phase. Now, remember, in the planning phase, all about doing the work to know what they're going to build later on in the execution phase, right? This is the planning phase. We can go into execution phase. And conflict can happen. And more so in the planning than in the execution. Why more so in the planning and less in the execution? Because they just got brought on board, right? And they don't know each other, and they are going through this step called forming. So they start off with forming, where the team is getting formed, right? They barely know each other by name even. They're trying to get to know each other, and then they go into the norming stage, where they are here they're forming, the norming, and then once they get to know each other, then they start to brainstorming, they start to have arguments. No, my way is right. No, your way is right. I'm right, and let's do it my way. And then somebody says, no, I think we should do it this way. So there's sort of there's a power game going on because they think they're right, and because they have not learned yet to be cohesive, be productive, be a team. Right? When you're a team, you are able to see each other's strengths and weaknesses, and you help each other with that. If you're weak in something, your team member will help you with that, and if the team member is weak in something, you're going to help them, and then vice versa. And then when it comes to strengths, they know who should do this task, who is good at this, and some are mentoring other team members because they're good at something else. So this team dynamics is forming slowly, and planning is the best time for this to happen, because they are gathering requirements, they are trying to figure out how they're going to design, and they figure out how they're going to build later on in the execution. So they're designing, gathering requirements, talking to the customer to get the requirements. They're trying to work with the team to see, the customer has given us all of these requirements. Are everything essential or not? They're scoping out. Let's do this and let's not do that. So is scoping going on, in and out. This is in, this is out. All of those things are going on. While that is happening, they are having conflicts. So here on this slide, it gives you at least an idea about what sort of conflicts typically team members go through. And if they do go through a conflict, what is the best approach to resolving a conflict? The best approach. And so if you look at this that both of them are actually trying to say the same thing in a different way. So the do's are: you confront, you collaborate. These are the do's. If there's a conflict, you confront the other person, you collaborate with the other person, and trying is sort of you're trying to work with them, accommodating them. You're trying to work with them, and then you're trying to compromise. This compromising, accommodating, is enforcing. These three things are not the preferred methods. Forcing, hey, I'm right and you're wrong, so let's do it my way. You're sort of forcing your opinion on somebody else. So compromising is sort of halfway. You're compromising halfway, which is also not the ideal state. And some people are just staying quiet. They just don't want to get into the situation. They just stay behind and sort of look are observers, and they don't want to express their opinion because they're afraid if they say something, they'll get bitten or something. So they're saying, I'm not going to get involved. Let them decide, and I'm fine with that. That's also not good. Accommodating is also not good. Okay, I'll go ahead. I'll go along. The best approach is to confront and collaborate. Now, if we look at, and this one on the left-hand side is sort of saying the same thing here. So collaboration is at the bottom here. That's where you need to be. Another way to express confronting and collaboration or collaborating is problem solving. So in the PMP exam, if they give you a situation where this is happening, somebody's forcing and somebody's avoiding and somebody's compromising and somebody's accommodating, and you'll also see problem solving and or confronting or collaborating, and they say, so in this situation, what would work best? So the best answer is typically where you confront, a part of confronting is where you discuss, right? And discussing is where you solve the problem. So problem solving requires you to confront the other person. It's not like you're confronting and then the fight goes on. No, confronting to understand, confronting to say, yes, we have a problem here, guys. Let's talk about it. That's how we're going to reach a solution, a understanding towards a solution, right? Collaborating. Let's collaborate. Let's put our heads together. Let's see what exactly is going on here. So, so going down to the team dynamics here. So brainstorming, norming, forming, all of this stuff that's happening initially when you got this team and got them on board. Things are not working right, and you should not panic. As a PM, you should not panic because people are fighting with each other. They're not collaborating. They're not doing the work. You should actually give them some time to get to know each other. You can play some team development activities and actually doing meeting with the customer and asking questions. You could all of them are asking questions. By asking questions, they're kind of knowing each other's strengths and weaknesses. So you want them to sort of work together somewhat so they get to know each other. And then after the brainstorming, when they have sort of gotten to know each other, you get into performing state. And performing state is where you want them to be. Because now, if they get into a conflict, they would open the charter and see what they have to do, right? That's why having a team charter is important. Initially, while they're going all of this stuff, and if you had the team charter, maybe that would have helped them also, right? It would help them go to that and then try to resolve this. But that's where the PM plays a good role, because PM understands what's going on, understands that initially when you get the team together, there are going to be conflict because of confusion about what they have to do, who's doing it, all of that good stuff. Now, that's why that RACI matrix which we saw earlier is going to come into play to bring them down to earth. They'll realize what they have to do. They realize, and they can exchange, right? They can exchange. They can swap tasks, because if on the RACI matrix, if you give it to somebody else may bring up that as a concern, and then maybe they could swap it. And so once it's written down, everybody can see it, and there won't be any issues. There won't be any conflict, because we did this based on your input, the team's input. I didn't just go in and start assigning willy-nilly, right? I brought them in, and then we discussed what the work was, and then who would be the best fit for this work, and we'll assign them. Now, a lot of times you don't get into this kind of situation because everybody knows that I'm not a trainer, so we have to get a trainer from outside. So big companies have people who just play one role. But in small companies, you have one person who's playing multiple roles. He's also the trainer. He's also the builder. He's also the tester. And he's also the programmer. One person doing all of those things. In big companies, you have 5 people, each doing different stuff. So this conflict doesn't happen as much, because you won't tell them to do something that they are not privy to or have no responsibility for or doesn't have the skill set. So, but in small companies, there could be this thing happening where they may be overstepping other people's responsibilities. Okay, so we talked about, now we have identified they're planning, but one thing the PM also has to estimate is the cost. Now, this cost, even though we're sort of discussing it now, but remember when we were discussing it earlier, we said that in the charter that we need Tom for 1 FTE, 1 full-time equivalent. At that time, we didn't have the name Tom at that time. We had an analyst. We needed an analyst, right? So we said we need an analyst, one-time equivalent, which means 40 hours a week. Now, that was in the charter. so we went into planning, and we said now we got to plan the budget, right? The budget for this project. Now we already had some budget in the charter. There is an amount there, especially if you are allocated a budget. Now in PMP, the assumption is all of you in this room, in this virtual room, have been given a large project. So you're not talking about a small project. So all of you have a budget. That's an assumption. They're thinking that you all have been working on at least a decent sized project. So there is going to be budget. So in the charter, you will have a budget, but you would not know, if that budget is going to be truly correct or not. Maybe you need more, maybe you need less. So you have to create you have to really, in the planning, you have to create a budget, right? In the charter, there's only a number. They gave you a number, but now you got to figure out if this number is correct or not by calculating, okay, it said I need one analyst, one FTE, that's 40 hours. So who are we going to get? Who is this person? If it turns out this person is not available and you have to go outside to get a contractor, which happens, then you need to figure out how much is the contractor's hourly rate. Then you're going to take that hourly rate. Let's say it's $50 an hour. Let's say $50 an hour. Then once you know that, and then you can multiply that by 40 because you said it's going to be one FTE. Then you'll get the dollar amount per week. Multiply 4 per month. Multiply 3 months for that amount. So you are going to need to know, first of all, you would need to know who this person is, and if it's going to be an outside person, what the hourly rate is, and then you need to know how much time this person is going to take up on this project. Even though you said it's going to be one FTE, but you don't know how long you're going to have him for one FTE, right? A month, 2 months, 3 months. And if it's 1 month, okay, you can say it's just 50. It's just $2,000, let's say, per week. Yeah. And then you say, okay, it's going to be 1 month, so that's $8,000. I see. That's 200 here, right? Yeah. 2,000. Yeah. So anyway, so whatever the amount may be, you are calculating that, but you really don't know it's going to be 3 months or 2 months because you don't have a schedule yet, right? You're just planning. So the last thing you do in planning is come up with a schedule. That's what the chapter that we're going to work on schedule is way down the line. Right now we started off with stakeholders, then we said resource. So now so we are sort of estimating the cost of the resource here. But right here is the schedule. And before that, there are a bunch of things you have to do. One of them is requirements. And this is all happening in the planning. First thing is you meet with the customer, you get the requirements, and then you break it down into scope statement, right? And then you break the scope statement into your WBS, work breakdown structure. WBS is your work breakdown structure, which is nothing but what deliverables I have to build when I move this project into execution phase. And what if in case of a house, the WBS looks like, the house, and then you have plumbing, you have electrical, you have this, you have that, all of those components. That's your WBS, all of that. So, and then when you break it down and you create your scope baseline, this is the house I'm going to build. And then you create your network diagram, sort of, what tasks. Network diagram is equal to your activity list of all your tasks. And then you now you're able to do cost estimates because now you know how many activities this person is going to do. If this person's going to do 3 months worth of activities, then we know this contractor, we're going to keep him for 3 months. So all of this planning is done during the planning phase, to estimate the cost of the resource. And in doing it, you also have to keep in mind, is this person going to take time off? If he's going to take time off, then we are not going to consider that time as part of the budget. If the person is going to take 2 weeks off in the middle of this 3-month period, then we are not going to account for this two weeks. Let's take that amount of money out of the budget for this person. So we said here, once we have the activities, now we can estimate the cost. If you go back up to, so the folks who have taken my previous class know that there is a top-down estimation method where you look at the big blocks and then you add it up, or there is the bottom-up way of estimating where you go to the nitty-gritty and then you add up those activities and come up with your cost. So if you have all these activities as a result of breaking down the WBS, and activities are your tasks, and this one person is going to working on many activities, and that activities will take this project into 3 months, then that you are doing a bottom-up estimation because you are really breaking down into its nitty-gritty, lowest level. And we'll go into more detail about task estimation in this schedule planning chapter. But at this time, all you want to know is, how long do you want to keep this guy? 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. We need to know what this person is going to do, how long each of the activities is going to take, and let's add it up, multiply by his hourly rate, and get an idea to estimate the cost of this resource. All right, and when it comes to coming up with a schedule, we'll go through the similar fashion. We're going to go through the requirements, the WBS, scope, cost, and then time. This is the this actually the cost is the time he's going to take to complete these tasks. But right now there are other things that we are not considering here, but we will when we come up with the schedule eventually. But again, just at this point in time, all you need to know is that resource cost has to be estimated at either a top-down level, which is when you first started off, or a bottom-up where it's more detail. An hourly rate sort of gives you somewhere in between here. Hourly rate is where you multiply by the amount of time, you get your total number of hours, and you can estimate your cost. So that's pretty much it. So we are looking at various dimensions of a resource, from a cost standpoint, from conflict standpoint, from team development standpoint, how we get them, how they should be readied to start to work. So going a little bit in detail about the resource estimation, and I did talk about estimating techniques already, that we were going to go with the bottom-up estimating, which is right here, which is the most detailed one and most accurate estimation technique, and the least accurate is the top-down, and that is going to be your analogous estimating. This would be considered your top-down. So for your PMP exam or CAPM exam, you should know that for a least accurate estimation technique is analogous or top down, and the most accurate is bottom up or 3-point estimation. 3-point estimation. This, which is right here. 3-point estimate looks something like, could look something like this. You have the pessimistic plus optimistic plus most likely divided by 3. P for pessimistic, M for most likely, O for optimistic divided by 3. This one right here. The bottom up, most detailed. And then this parametric is somewhere in the middle. Parametric is somewhere in the middle. An example of parametric could be, let's say you are trying to buy a house and you go to a location and the real estate agent tells you that the square footage in this area for a house here would be $50 per square foot. That if you buy a house here, it's going to cost you $50 per square foot. So you can estimate the size of the house and multiply by that $50 per square foot, and you will know how much the house is going to cost. So that's called a parametric estimation. Estimating using some sort of formula, and which is also in the 3-point as well. So, but it's a parameter you use. But I think the 3-point is specifically this one, which is a really good way to estimate, because you're looking at the pessimistic, the optimistic, the worst, the best, and the most likely divided by 3. So let's take an example of this. Let's say you are trying to buy a car. You go to 3 dealerships. One dealership says this cost is going to be let's say $20,000. So and that could be, one says 20,000, one says 40,000, and one says 30,000. So the optimistic is going to be 40,000, the pessimistic is going to be 20,000, and most likely is going to be 30,000, which is in the middle. Divide all 3 by 3, which is sort of taking an average, and you'll get a number. So that's what this pessimistic mean, and optimistic and most likely means: the worst, the best, and the ones in the middle, divided by 3. There is another formula which is called beta distribution, which takes the pessimistic and then pluses with 4 times the most likely plus optimistic divided by 6. So that's another one. It's called beta. Regular distribution is one that's sort of more popular in for the exam, and it falls in this bottom up estimating criteria or category. I hope I made this a little bit clearer. We are trying to estimate the cost of the resource, and we have 4 methods, 3 methods: the top down, the bottom up, and the parametric. And then we have for top down, we have a analogous as a more refined name for that, and then and also for bottom up, we have a more standard name called 3-point. So you just have to memorize these names and know which one is which. And here it's another one that illustrates the accuracy. And if you notice, the 3-point is more accurate is up here, and versus analogous, which is sort of down here. And when you start the estimation of anything, you know that when you're starting off in the charter, which is somewhere right here, the estimates are pretty bad, right? Minus 25 to plus 75. The variation is pretty bad here, initiation. But as you start planning, you are sort of midway. As you get close to the final planning, you are close to being very accurate, and then you start your execution where you actually build it. So this is a good illustration to kind of show you the accuracy of these methods for estimating resources and also for estimating tasks. When you have to estimate tasks, we follow the same estimating methods. Both are task duration, how long this task is going to take. You use the same exact methods. All right, so let's talk about some tools here. We're getting close to the end here. So let's look at page 134. 134 has a histogram, and I'm going to draw it here so folks who are not looking at their books. A histogram looks like this, and on here there's some values, goes from, let's say, 0% to 100%, and then you have these bars here. You have one bar, and then you have another bar. You have another bar, and maybe you have another bar. And let's say this is week 1. So these bars could be resources. This could be Tom here. This could be Samantha. This could be William. This could be Tom. So week 1, and this could be the utility. How much they are being utilized week 1. And to show that, we draw what they call a histogram. This is a histogram. And this is week 1. So you could have another one for week 2. And it'll be different, right? Because in this week, this guy here, let's say A, B, C, D. The C person here is, let's say, working at let's say this is 70%, at 70%. And the same C, if you go to week 2, may be working at 20%. So this histogram is going to show you the utility or resource profile versus time. And page 134 in the new book is going to give you an example. I'm pretty sure Olivia is going to look for one in the old book and tell me in a minute. Okay, thank you, Olivia. It's 308. So you can look at page 308 to see this diagram there. And that's what this is. Histogram is a good way. There could be a PMP question about, the project manager is worried, sick, because he doesn't know how each team member is doing. So what tool should the PM use to find out their utility? Oh, 377. Thank you, Javier. So whoever is using the 9th version can go to 377 page and look at it. So they'll give you 4 or 5 tools. So you know what histogram can do for you. So you can immediately say, I'm going to use the histogram to find out which resource is doing how much, and see, because now that in week 2, C person is only doing 20%. Maybe we can give this person more work. Right? And take some work from this person who is just doing too much, the B person, and take some work from here and give it to our friend C to level the utility. That's what leveling means. Leveling. This is also a PMP question. It sort of works in conjunction with histogram. How are you going to level the resources if some resources are getting exhausted, burnt out? What should you do? You should level. Now, level has one risk though. When you start to level and start to say, hey, you take this and you give him that, you may elongate the timeline. The timeline may expand. if you level. There are advantages of leveling. It's just that everybody gets equal amount of work to do, right? That's the plus. But the negative of this is that it's going to push things forward. So you have to be careful. Even though you're going to minimize the peaks and valleys, just keep in mind that you don't want to impact the timeline too much. So you can level a little bit. Don't do too much. Don't go do it drastically. So just be very careful about that. RBS, we talked about that. Resource breakdown structure is good to sort of when you have a lot of people and you say, okay, this is the contractor here, and the contractor has 4 people. 1, 2, 3, 4. BS. This is called the RBS. You draw the contractor and draw his people, and you say, okay, now who's who and what are they going to be doing? Number 1, let's see, that's the electrical person. Okay, I'm going to make you the electrician. I know number 2, about the electrical work, but we're going to make you the plumber because you have some plumber experience also. So you sort of draw the RBS. And why and how do you know who to give what? You look at the requirements, right? Look at the requirements, the blueprint from the architect. You look at the blueprint, which is your requirements. Blueprint has all the requirements from the customer, and you use RBS to distribute the work amongst your team. You can also use the RACI matrix to, once you have done that, then you can show the RACI matrix to everybody. This is how we're going to do it. You can use the tool we talked about, but RACI matrix comes to my mind first. I know we had talked about RAM, assignment matrix. That is a simple matrix, that would be a simple, okay, you're the plumber. You are this. That's very simple, right? But you don't know who's going to, as a plumber, maybe the plumber, there are 2 or 3 plumbers, right? So give somebody the responsibility to be for the work, right? So, and who should be a consultant. So the RACI gives you a little more detail. RAM doesn't give you the detail. So that's the difference. So keep that in mind. Okay, so we talked about the cost, we talked about estimating resource, and we talked about histogram, and I think, and then here is another pictorial of RBS, resource breakdown structure template. So it would be a good one to look at. Let's move this here so you can see where we are. So we talked about planning, we talked about estimating. Now we're going to acquiring resources. So we estimated, we need an architect, we need a contractor, we need a designer, we need a trainer, and we have estimated how much it's going to cost us because we're building the budget in the previous slide. Now that we have the resources, we're going to start planning how they're going to actually do the work. Now, this halo effect is a term that's used sometimes and could be asked in the exam. This happens when, let's say, you are doing a project and you're one member of your team who is, let's say, the plumber. The plumber does an excellent job of plumbing, and everybody is not everybody. Let's say the contractor is very impressed by the plumber, and then on the next job, the contractor says, "You plumber, I'm going to promote you to lead all of the plumbing, the electrical person, or you could be my second man. You could be my backup because you're so good at plumbing. I think you have the leadership qualities, and I think you should be able to. You manage plumbing very well. So why don't you manage the electrical manage the concrete, manage the framework, manage the carpentry, and manage a lot of. He gives this person more responsibilities based on one observation. That's called a halo effect, because what could happen, and usually happens, is when you promote people like that, by just giving him or her more responsibilities based on one event, one experience, and the person now gets to take care of more responsibility, more work, more people, the person doesn't do as well. And what's the reason? The reason is the person did not get enough experience to be able to do that. I mean, you've got to work not on one project, but on many projects before you get to a point where you can start to lead the whole team, right? So halo effect is you were good before, therefore you are good now. That is not always true. So keep that in mind. Halo effect phenomena happens quite a bit. A lot of people get promoted based on their singular success, and when they're given more responsibility, they collapse because they did not really get a lot of opportunity to practice what they know. And I think that's the. Javier, you have a point here. Yeah, I think you had. So let me just see Javier's comment before we move on, because I know he probably has his problems speaking because of his headphone. A common halo effect example is attractiveness, and the tendency to assign positive qualities to an attractive person. For example, you might see a physically beautiful person and assume they have only my cursor worked. The cursor is going crazy on me. Okay, so I think we got the point here.
They're generous, smart, and trustworthy.
Yep. You're absolutely right. So that does happen, and that's a good example of a halo effect, where you just are relying on one characteristic of a person, whether that's beauty or whether that's skill or whether that person working on just one effort and doing very well, you get so impressed by that person, and then you give him more responsibility. So what really I've seen a good manager who know about this and don't do that is when they give. I know another person who became a lead on his team. Before they make that person a manager, they made that person a lead first. For example, before a supervisor becomes a manager, he has to really show that he can be a good supervisor, right? Before he can become a manager. And the same goes for a lead. So a lead will not become a manager or supervisor unless the manager sees that the lead can lead a team and is doing very well with them. I mean, we may have to go through training. Now, so going back to, so it could be a characteristic like Javier's example, or it could be a skill set. So, or it could be an event that made somebody make a decision that may not turn out to be good. So keep that definition in mind, or the example in mind, in case an PMP example sort of describes this situation and says, so what's going on here? Did the PM select the right person? That could be a question, and they may pose that by giving a story and saying this is what happened, and the guy got a leadership role or something, and then a question may pop up and say, okay, given the situation, did the PM or did the manager make the right decision? And what could be happening here? And one of the answers could be halo effect, and so you should know what that means. Hybrid environments. So we know what a hybrid environment is, a mixed environment where resources are not going to change. Is that they could swap, they could be working as a sprint fashion, sprint team, and then they could move from sprint team, move to a predictive type setup. All right, talking about types of teams, what types of teams are out there? Dedicated. A team that is dedicated to a project manager, every time a project manager starts a project and gets the same team, is almost like the project manager is a true resource manager, because the team never changes. If the team never goes home, that's a projectized matrix. A projectized matrix where the team never goes home.
Prof, you're intended to share your PowerPoint.
All
Sorry.
right. If I can get to it, hold on a second. I've lost my cursor for some reason. Hold on a second. Let me get to it. Okay, I got it. Okay, I got my cursor back. Okay, thank you, Javier. All right, so you guys should be able to see it now. So hybrid environment is a mix one. And while we are, so we're getting close to 9 o'clock. So we'll take, hopefully we are at the end of this. If not, we'll continue on Wednesday. All right, so types of dedicated, we talked about that, projectized. So keep that in mind. A projectized is a type of a matrix where a project manager has its own team that never goes home, meaning the project manager is the manager of that team forever. That's a project type. We don't see that a whole lot, but it does happen. I don't. That's not a strong matrix, by the way. That's a totally different kind of situation. But it is a type of matrix that is out there. Part time, part time is happening. Part time is teams are part time. When you have a matrix, most of the teams are usually part time in a matrix. It's not the projectized matrix, but a functional matrix. A functional matrix, functional and a matrix, whether that's strong matrix or weak matrix, or a functional type structure, part time or full time. Well, here is part time. So it could be part time. Mostly they're part time because you can't have full time people, and the reason being, in this day and age, there are a lot of projects going on, and you have one resource of that is working on multiple projects at a time, and that's very common. That's why we call them cross-functional. First of all, they're coming from different departments and they're working on many projects at the same time. And that sometimes is an issue, but again, like I said, you got to partner with the resource manager to make sure you don't lose your resources when you need them. If you're partnering with your resource manager, you can talk to the resource manager, and the resource manager is aware that you need that person. So he won't just say, okay, go to this other project because I need you on the other project. Well, since the resource manager is partnering with you, if that happens, resource manager may ask you that I need this person for a few hours to work on this other project, then he's going to come back to your project. So if you don't have this relationship, that can create issues sometimes. That's one reason where you would need them. The other reason could be if there's a team conflict, you would need them. Part-time negotiation is required, right? You got to negotiate for that 25% FTE you need, right? The 0.25 FTE, you would need to negotiate that because you're taking a quarter of that person, 8 hours of that 8 hour per week of that person, and for your team. Partnership, vendor partnership is, like I said, treat your vendor like they are part of your team. Be fair. Don't think that because we're paying the vendor, the third party solution provider, and they're working for you, that you have an edge. You may have an edge, but try to be fair with them. This way, what's going to happen is they're going to work very hard for you. First of all, they're going to like you because you're being fair to them, and then they're going to work very hard for you because they know you are a fair person, and you're not beating up on them. Same thing, they also have their own issues. You got to work with them, right? You're a diplomat. Diplomat works with everybody. All right, virtual can get the best resource because of the flexibility of location. Yeah, another PMP question: why do you prefer virtual over face-to-face? Because with virtual, you pretty much can get anybody you want, because the person cannot say, hey, I'm working in Australia and I can come to your team, and you are located in US and I'm your lead, but so there's no excuse. I mean, virtual gives you that flexibility of working with anybody anywhere at any time, right? They can find time for you because it's virtual. They just have to be at their desk. And so that's one flexibility of having a virtual type scenario versus a face-to-face. But obviously, it also has some drawbacks. But I personally don't think there are many drawbacks to working with a team virtually. Although the only drawbacks I see is when you're working with a customer. Yeah, with the customer, the business people, they don't like to work virtually a lot. And also sometimes when you need to visit with them and find out what they actually do, because they work with some applications, they have some workflow. You just have to kind of figure out what they do. So then you can say, okay, let's do virtual now. Initially, you go talk to them, figure out where they are, what they do. If they're working in a factory, what the factory is like, what the environment is like, what the culture is like, and meet everybody. And once you've met everybody and know what they do, then you say, okay, let's start to do this virtually. And then you can go on virtual, and you have a background now. You got background information, you got data from them, and that is going to help you better understand them and better able to work with them. Pre-assigned is another concept here. Pre-assignment. Sometimes when you get the charter, there is a named person in there. A named person, not just the type, but the named person. Hey, this person is going to be your trainer. You've pre-assigned somebody to your project for a particular task. It's called pre-assignment. And that doesn't happen a whole lot, but it does happen. And so you already know you have this person for this particular task. And maybe because it's a special type of work, a special skill set, and that person is uniquely qualified to fill in those shoes. So keep that in mind. All right. Agile team, characteristic of an agile team. They are stable. Why are they stable? They are stable because they don't. First of all, they are small. They're small teams, and they don't move a lot. They're usually full time. They're usually one FTEs. They have all of themselves dedicated to your project. Usually, but not always, but a lot of times, especially in software projects, they are going to be there full time working on the project, and that's why there's so few. I mean, four people or 3 people, and they do building, testing, training, everything. So they're stable. In other words, they don't move around. There's no partials here. But like I said, it's not always the case, but generally speaking, they're relatively small, generally speaking, because of the fact, they've got small teams, they got to do things fast, and they got to have these sprints, these sprints going on, right? One sprint, 2, sprint 3. So they got to jump, and 2 to 4 weeks, get something done, 2 to 4 weeks, and keep on going. So they have to be very flexible, cohesive, self-managing is the word. Self-managing. And all they're looking for is one big V, value. Value. They are trying to provide value quickly. And that's why they are, these teams are put together. You don't have to wait, a long time to get value. Every 2 to 4 weeks, you get some value. Have all the needed team members. So there is no sharing. They prefer not to share. Like I said, they're full body, the whole thing. They're one FTEs. There's no sharing here. But like I said, generally they are not like that, but that's not always the case. How to acquire? So how do we acquire people? Pre-assignment, we already know. Somebody said this person is the right person. You're going to work on this project. Halo effect, is just where things go wrong. And interpersonal and team skills, you need those to get people to work for you. Basically, you have to talk to the resource managers to get people. Multi-criteria decision analysis. This is where you sort of, this is what I need. And I got A and I got B and I got C. Who is going to meet that need? So you're doing a multi-criteria, and you have the criteria, right? This need has a criteria. And so you are trying to do some decision analysis. Okay, based on the skill set, we have this skill set, we have this skill set, with this skill set, which skill set would make the most sense for this particular job. And so you are deciding by using different multi-criterias to come up with a decision for selecting a person. So now we acquired a person. First of all, we identified the person, we estimated the cost, we acquired the person, and now we're going to develop this person or this team. So team development is, if we are at 908, we can, let's see how much we got left. Team development, and that's it. Okay, so we'll talk. We'll start on Wednesdays past 9 o'clock. So let's let you go. On Wednesday, we'll finish up on resources. I think there are 4 or 5 slides left. Then we'll jump to problems, and then we'll do some problems for an hour or two, and then we'll either start on a new topic, or we will take up questions and we'll do some review. I'll come up with some stuff for you guys to do. All right, so Wednesday we'll do problems and finish up on this. Go ahead, Letris.
Can you add me to, can you mark me as present, please?
Oh, sure. Let me do that right now while you're all here. Let me stop this and go to my note and check off people here. All right, so right now, Letris is here. I'm going to mark her present. Brandy, I don't think she's here. Azim is here. Mahasen is not here.
He was for a while, and he put in the chat to please ask.
Okay.
That's her. Mohasen is her. It's she.
It's a she.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was also confused initially. Yes, no problem.
Bad.
No, it's okay. So yeah, it's a she. Takira, did anybody see Takira? No. No. Okay. Candice was here. Yes or no? No. Okay.
Candice is here.
Candice is here, and Ernisha. I didn't see Ernisha either. All right. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people on the roster for today, and let me count how many we have right now. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 1 left. Okay. All right, everyone. Appreciate your presence today. We'll continue on Wednesday and do problems.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Professor, I had a question regarding the previous class. If you could just...
Sure. I'm here.
Yeah, remember you said that we're gonna get the test results and these certificates. Someone will contact us, and I don't know. Nobody. I didn't.
Okay, everybody else can drop off. Let me just talk to Azim.
Can I ask you a question?
Either.
Sure, go ahead.
I didn't get my certificate either, Professor.
Okay, Letris, Azim, I'm going to send. You got your grades, right? So I'm going to send a note to Chernika. I think Chernika's.
Yes, Chandrika Taylor. But we.
So
I wasn't contacted. I thought I'm gonna be contacted, but no one contacted me.
okay, if you know her email address, send it. Ask her this and CC me, and Letris, if you know her or not.
I'm familiar with Shanrika, yes.
Okay, just send an email and CC me and ask her when are we getting the certifications, and I will let my boss know also, and so we can speed it up for you guys.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Olivia, you had a question. Okay,
I think she left. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.